Okay.
All right, we begin with chapter 2, which is the management environment. And the management environment is basically two things: the external environment of the business and the internal environment of the business. All right, we explain what is the external. Hello, we already begin, okay? So, begin and explain what is the external environment. That's more than half of this class, okay? We discuss how the external environment affects managers. Of course, that happens clearly. We're going to be explaining that. Then we discuss the internal environment is the environment inside the business. And the environment inside the business has a special name. That name is called organizational culture. So I will be discussing what is organizational culture and discuss why it is important, all right? Even here, this university has its own organizational culture, okay? Every business has an organizational culture, okay? Even government, police has an own organizational culture, okay? Organizational culture doesn't mean good, doesn't mean bad. I'll be explaining more later today. And then we go through the same. Explain how organizational culture affects managers. Okay, so we go through the external environment. That's part one. So the external environment is the factors or the forces, the situations or the events which are outside of the organization, outside of the business. We also say they are outside the control of the business. So if it's inside the control of the business, it's the internal. If it's outside the control, it is the external. But it affects the performance. So what happens in Russia, does it affect you guys here in any way? Does it affect you if something happens in Russia? The guy's looking at me smiling. The answer is yes, to a great degree. It affects, for example, in the economy here, because you have too many Russian tourists. You also have too many Russian investors, okay? So, this is an example of how the international environment is affecting you, meaning not you personally, the local economy, and in a sense affects most businesses around here. So, we have six major external environment factors, okay? When we say factors, we mean element. Here, they call it component. So, it is a component or a factor, and we got 6 of them. And these 6 are global. I just gave you an example. Something happens in Russia, it affects the local economy here, okay? Something happens there, it affects the global economy here. The local economy here. Global will be also, as I gave you examples of the European crisis, the economic crisis in Greece, in Britain. We also got it in Italy, in Spain. So most of Europe has economic problems, okay? Global example will be Japan had a big tsunami which affected electricity and a lot of other things. Global will be also what happened or is going on in the United States for the last 5 years. The United States is going through a major recession. So global essentially means outside the country, means in foreign countries, which affects the local economy. This one is economic. And economic essentially means what happens here in the local economy. Your local economy will be the Thai economy. So is the economy growing or is the economy in a recession? Is the banking system stable and crediting, or is the banking system unstable and not crediting? What about the political system? The political system should be here. So, factor number 3 will be the political system. What is the political system of a country, an economy, is very important. Stable politics means good, stable business. And of course, unstable politics provides for unstable business. So, being able to analyze the political system is very important, but even more important is to be able to forecast future political instability, okay? Some countries are relatively stable, other countries are not stable. An example of a stable country will be Australia, very stable politically. New Zealand, also stable politically. The United Kingdom is fairly stable politically. Germany is fairly stable politically, okay? Well, for a long time we had political instability in Japan. There's been partial instability here in Thailand from time to time, okay? So the political environment affects business, and businesses will have to look into the political environment. The next piece is legal. Legal environment is also very important. Stable legal system is very important for especially foreign investments. These are some of the problems of the neighboring country, Laos, so far. They got some of the problems in Myanmar. We call them Burma. Okay, we call it Burma, right? So Burma's got some political problems in there. So, and legal issues too. The court system has to work really well. For about 100 years, the best political system in the world and legal system in the world was in the United States. This is also the reason why the United States grew to become one of the better economies in the world. It had solid political, solid legal system, and it protected investors. The protection of investors is extremely important. For example, many foreign investors are afraid to invest in Thailand because of this, we call it majority ownership legal rule. The majority ownership rule we discussed last time requires that in a business, the majority ownership should be owned by Thai people, right? We discuss it here, or we discuss it with the other class, the accounting class. So what happens is that many foreigners are just afraid. They say, well, I'm not going to invest at all, okay? So the legal system is very important, either to encourage investors or to discourage them so that they don't want to invest. Another very important external factor is the demographics. And demographics means the distribution of age, sex, and possibly religion in a nation. For example, the Arab world has a lot of young people, and young people are sometimes prone to revolution, okay? So countries with a lot of young people, when these young people grow to become 20, 25, or 30 years old, if they have jobs and can make money, that's really good. But if they don't have jobs, don't have money, that causes a big problem. Similarly, demographics is about old people. Does the country have a lot of old people or few old people? If the country has a lot of old people, this means that there's got to be, usually, a retirement system where the young people work to provide for the old people. So demographics in general is important also for shopping. Like young generation is buying iPhones, young generation is buying iPads, they're buying laptops, they're buying all sorts of technology gadgets, okay? Younger generation wants more entertainment, okay? So, old generation wants more peace, they want more quiet, they want more health care, okay? Usually older people are more concerned about hospitals. So demographics determines in a very, very long sense, 10, 20, 30 years, how the economy will go. Of course, together with the economic, global, political. You also have technological. We already discussed technological. Technology, of course, affects every business. Technology, of course, affects managers. Now, we usually struggle as professors how students, well, you all got the iPads and the iPhones, using them all the time. Are you using them to actually study in class, or use them mostly to send SMS and play Facebook and YouTube and all of those things? So technology is especially tricky in major corporations where the manager can't always go to the employee to look at his computer screen to see, is the employee doing work email or doing personal email, okay? Well, technology, they claim, was also part of the so-called Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring was what's called a revolutionary movement in 2000, it's kind of 2010, 11. In the Arab world, well, the young generation got together by using technology, okay, using the mobiles and everything else to organize themselves to uprise and, cause or create a revolution to remove the local government, okay? So technology affects businesses in many ways. In your business, for example, hospitality with hotels, people these days use internet technology to do their booking, their hotel booking. People use technology to buy airplane tickets. So technology affects in a major way all businesses, including education. Technology is also very important for healthcare, for medical services. In the healthcare business, the industry uses a lot of technology. And technological changes are sometimes very important. The final is socio-cultural. And socio-cultural is, what is the society like? What is the culture of society? Now, you got to differentiate. There are two types of culture. One is of the whole country, of the whole nation, of the people. The other one is the culture of the business itself, okay? I'm going to discuss it in the second lecture, the second half of this. So socio-cultural are people mostly who, yeah, it also affects religion. Are people mostly Christian? Are people mostly Muslims? Or people mostly Hindu or Buddhist? So culture is very important in a business. It's very important how people manage the business. It's been American businesses who go in a different country, they try to use American marketing, American advertising, American management approach, and these approaches just don't work in many countries in Asia, okay? Well, they've tried the other way around. You have Japanese culture, mentality, people, they try to use Japanese management techniques in US, and sometimes they don't work either. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. So people have to be very careful about the socio-cultural environment. Now what's going to happen is the slides will go one by one to some of these again in more detail. They're telling us here on this slide how the economy has changed, and I'll give you a little different story over here. What they mean by this is that since 2008, the United States economy has been in a major depression. It's not simply a recession. 5 years going on is not just a recession. It is a real, genuine, serious depression that the American economy is going through. They want to tell you that it started in the or it is caused in the mortgage markets, but it was not. The US economic crisis or economic recession or economic depression started like most economic crises begin. They all begin with debt. Too much debt. Too much credit. So the US economy, like most economies around the world, got too much government debt. It also got too much financial debt. It also got too much business debt. Businesses get deeper and deeper into debt. And too much household debt. Families, they're deep in debt. And part of family debt is mortgage debt. Mortgage means a loan secured by real estate. And the Americans, what they did is borrow too much money to buy houses. Well, that's a problem. Oh, all right, not so much talking, okay? Okay? We're gonna finish, and then you're gonna take a break. You can talk all you want, but for now, no. So, mortgage market is essentially the market for loans for houses. Technically, they're secured by the house. Is a mortgage loan. So Americans borrowed too much money to buy too many big, too expensive houses, and households got in trouble. But of course, only mortgage markets don't cause a big problem. It's the whole economy which is in big debt. Now, Japan's been for 3 years in a major economic recession or depression. And the Japanese economy, the problem has been exactly the same. Too much debt. Everyone too much in deep debt in 1990, and the Japanese have been trying to pay down their debt, but the Japanese government keeps increasing the debt, okay? So as long as they keep the debt high, the economy is not recovering. 1997, that will be what, about 15 years ago, Asia had a crisis. The crisis began right here in Thailand, right? With the collapse of the Thai baht. The currency went down. The Thai baht was linked to the dollar at that time. It was in a currency peg. And suddenly all foreign investors lost money. Suddenly foreign investors trying to pull their capital out of the country meant that the banking system pretty much collapsed. And with the banking system collapsing, this means the government collapsing, the economy collapsing, and it took just a couple of weeks to hit Indonesia, to hit Malaysia, to hit other countries around the world. So, for you, it is important to learn and understand early on that trouble, economic trouble, does not come out of nowhere. Economic trouble usually begins with debt. An economy gets in too much debt, and the result is economic crisis, okay? They call this period from 2008 until now is usually known as the Great Recession, okay? Recession means the economy going down. The economy is contracting. A different way to think about recession is that unemployment is going up, okay? That's another way of thinking about recession. So they call it the Great Recession, but it is really a depression. It's been going on now for 5 years, and it will go on for many, many, many years more, okay? It's characterized by foreclosure. Let's explain the word foreclosure. Foreclosure means that a lender who lent someone money to buy a house, when the borrower cannot pay the lender goes and takes the house back, okay? So people who borrowed money to buy a house are losing the house, okay? Well, meaning they cannot pay back the loan. So that's a foreclosure. Foreclosure essentially means too many Americans losing their houses because they cannot pay their mortgage loan. Also, high rates of unemployment. Of course, when the economy is shrinking, business is shrinking, businesses are releasing a lot of workers, and you got a lot of unemployment. Since 1997, Asian crisis, in 98, 99, and 2000, in Thailand, there was a huge unemployment, big financial problems, big economic problems. So everywhere you get into a major recession, you get unemployment. Unemployment means for employers, very easy to find new workers, and wages for workers go down. It also means huge public debt. When the economy gets in trouble, government is trying to spend more money to help the economy. So if individuals don't spend money, and if businesses don't spend money, then the government believes that it is supposed to stimulate the economy by spending more money. Well, if the economy is going down and taxes are not increasing, how is the government going to get more money to spend? And the answer is by debt, public debt. Debt is the same as borrowing. The government borrows more and spends it. So it is actually in the nature of governments, when the economy goes bad, that governments borrow and spend. Japan does it, Britain does it, Europe does it. All governments, it's in the nature of governments to spend more money by borrowing. Well, what you should know and remember is that sooner or later, that government debt will mean big problems for the government a few years later. Now the Japanese government is in big trouble, and they are effectively going bankrupt. The British government today is in big trouble. And the British government is going bankrupt. Well, they're not, because the central bank is printing the money, giving it to the government, and the government is spending it. So now they are using the strategy of print, borrow, and spend. And printing money means inflation and falling currency. Okay? So governments borrowing big time and widespread social problems. Social problems means people don't have money to pay for hospital, people don't have money for food, people having all sorts of different. So usually economic problems always mean soon enough social problems. Okay, so how will business change? And the short answer is business will be having less customers in the United States and will be hiring less, spending less, and investing less. Okay? And they tell us over here that, oh, government, role of, government and financial, that's all nonsense. Okay? And here is the other key. The key is that the US government is spending, all right, everybody, government is spending as much money, meaning comparable to World War II level. Well, what does it mean? This means the American government is spending so much money as if it is in a war, okay? Without actually being in a war. Well, I mean, it's got Iraq, it's got Afghanistan, but it's not like being in a major world war. So what this means is government going deep in debt, and what does it mean to you being here in Thailand? Means that when the American financial system starts to collapse, it will affect the European financial system, it will affect the Asian financial system, it will affect including Australia, it will affect Japan, it will affect China, and all of these countries are essentially bringing in tourists here. So essentially you should be very careful about the global recession, because the global recession sooner or later, maybe after 2 years, maybe after 5, maybe after 7, will affect significantly the Thai economy, which is mainly driven by tourism. Okay, so you being in the tourism and hospitality business should be very careful about watching what happens in the global economy. And that's the global piece that you should be aware of. And finally, there will be a lot more regulations. That's about the financial industry, not very important for you. Okay. Now, what role do demographics play? I already explained what demographics mean, and let's say they discuss the external environment affects managers. Okay, here's a simple one. The external environment, of course, affects jobs, okay? If the economy is very good, as it is today in Thailand, it's a lot easier to find a job if you're working, but if you're a manager, it's very difficult to find a highly qualified, let's say, worker. For example, it is very difficult to find highly qualified professors. And the answer is because professors choose to work in a bank where they get paid 2 or 3 times more money. Sometimes a bank can pay 4 or 5 times more money. Okay? So a strong economy, it means harder time for managers to find qualified workers, to find qualified employees. Also, a strong economy will usually mean that managers will have to increase salaries. Okay? they have to do that. Well, a stronger and growing economy means that managers should be and would usually make more investments, okay? Managers make more investments. Put in a new restaurant, open a second hotel, okay? All of those things. Let's see what else. The new piece here, which is becoming more and more important today, both in US, Europe, and here in Thailand, is called uncertainty. Uncertainty means not being able to predict exactly what's going to happen in the future, okay? So stable environment means easy to forecast, easy to predict. Unstable means uncertain, difficult to predict. You don't know what's exactly going to happen. Well, now we have global uncertainty. In global uncertainty, the three of you, okay? Maybe you'll need to separate, okay? It's a warning, okay? So, the global environment is very uncertain. It is uncertain due to the global ongoing recession, to the global ongoing crisis. That's why I'm saying it's not clear whether Japan's gonna fall or have a major problem within 3 months, or 6 months, or 2 years, or 5 years. But we know they're gonna get into a big trouble, much bigger than they are today. Same thing with the United States. We know the US economy is going down, but it's difficult to forecast exactly when, exactly for how long. So this all means uncertainty. And this uncertainty there creates for uncertain environment here, okay? And finally, the other piece is that the external environment is important for managing stakeholder relationships. So I need to explain what is a stakeholder. I think we got a little bit of a screen. Is it coming? No, not coming yet. Stakeholder means someone who is interested. Someone who is interested in the business. One stakeholder is the owner. Owner is a stakeholder. We also call them investors. Investors are stakeholders in the business. Another stakeholder is the bank, as in creditors. Those that lend money to the business want to know what's happening with the business. Is the business doing good or not good? Another major stakeholder in most countries is the government. Government is interested in the business because it wants to take taxes out of the business, okay? So government wants to know what's happening with a business because they get taxes out of it. Well, another major group of stakeholders are the employees, those that work in there. They work there, they make their money out of the business, they want to know if the business is good and getting better, or if the business is bad and getting worse, and they may lose their job. If the business is getting better, they can increase their salaries, okay? Then if the business is going bad, they may become unemployed. And sometimes a major stakeholder is the customer. The customer wants to know if the business is doing well, if it will have a good service, if the business will be there 3 months from now or 6 months from now. For example, you buy yourself a little scooter and they say, oh, we give you a 3-year guarantee, okay? If something goes bad with the scooter, you can go back, they fix it for you, okay, right? Well, right, if the company is still around. If the company goes bankrupt, there's nobody to fix your scooter, okay? Meaning, you will have to go some other place and pay for fixing it, okay? So, as a customer who gets a guarantee or a warranty, you want to know if the business is stable enough or solid enough. All right. So the next piece I already discussed, part of it is environmental uncertainty. And environmental uncertainty means how it is easy or how easy it is to predict the future of the business. And the business depends on how simple or complex the business is and how stable or unstable, meaning dynamic, the environment is. Okay? Let me give you an example of a business which is very stable. The education business. The education business doesn't change too much. Internally, the university doesn't change a lot, okay? Externally, you don't easily get another university to open with the same size, the same scope, the same competition. So, universities will usually have a relatively stable environment. And sometimes the business can be very simple, or sometimes the business can be complex. An example of complex business is the smartphone business. Technologies change, competitors change, there is too much innovation, new products, okay, new operating systems, and so on. An example of a simple business is a little restaurant of 3 or 4 people, okay? That will be a fairly simple business. And now you can see if a business is simple or is in an environment of simple and stable environment, you see you have stable and it is predictable. The key word which I was explaining is predictable, meaning being able to forecast. So if it's simple and stable, it's easy to forecast. You can see what happens. For the university here, it's very easy to forecast how many students are coming next year. Okay? It's not too difficult. But for the tourist industry, it's not so easy to find out what's going to happen by December. Okay? Because the global economy is dynamic. All right. You have few components in the environment. So you don't have many pieces which are changing a lot, okay? And components are somewhat similar, remain basically the same. So the environment is simple and it doesn't change too much. And you will get to read all of these, but businesses which are most difficult are those that are in a complex and dynamic environment. This will be the iPad business. This will be sometimes the automotive business. Sometimes, or some of the new, it's called alternative energy. For the most part, the tourism business needs to see what happens in the global economy. All right, back to stakeholders. So stakeholders are groups of people who have some interest in the business. They call it a constituency. Constituency means a group of people with similar interests. Right now, you here in this classroom are a constituency, and your interest is learning good management and hopefully getting good grades, okay? So this is your basic interest, and you're all united by this particular goal of good knowledge, good education, and a good grade, meaning good reward. So it's a constituency, a group of people in an organization's environment. These people could be inside the business, could be outside the business, that are affected, the same as interested by the decisions and actions of the organization. All right, so managers have to manage the stakeholder relationships. So, they have to have good stakeholder relationships. And good stakeholder relationships can affect the business. Can affect the business. So, it is important for a business to keep good relationships with the government. It's got to keep good relationships with the customers. Okay? Well, it's got to keep good relationships with its employees, those that work inside. Basically, it's got to keep everybody happy, all right? It's got to keep everybody satisfied. If the customer is not satisfied, this means big problems down the road. If the employees or workers are not satisfied, this means problems down the road. Employees leaving the business and having hard times fulfilling it. So it affects the organizational performance. Also, it is important for businesses to be recognized as doing the right thing, as being a good business, okay? Doing a good service, helping society, okay? This is about the image. And the image is also, or sometimes, very important for customers, okay? Good image for a business means, oh, okay, you can go there. For example, Thailand has a very good image as a country, as a tourist country in Europe. Before coming here, I spoke with a lot of Bulgarians. Oh, it's a great country. You'll love it. You're going to have a great experience over there. A lot of people who went and came here said, oh, we would love to come again as tourists over here. So, image is important because it builds customers. Image is important because it builds reputation to buy at a later time. Another type of image is you get a good positive image out of, let's say, the iPad, and maybe you're going to buy a MacBook or some other Apple product, okay? But in this particular case, it is creating the image in the eyes of stakeholders or the rest of the world. And that's what I was talking about. To create and reinforce a positive image. So, positive image is very important. And let me finish now, before we take the break, with some of the stakeholders. I already mentioned employees as a major stakeholder. I already mentioned customers as a major stakeholder. Unions as in labor unions. Yeah, labor unions would like to know what's going on in here, okay, in the business. You also have shareholders. Shareholder is the same as investors, those that invest and own the business. Of course, they want to know how the business is doing. Community is in the nearby community. The nearby community, they want to know if the business is polluting, if it's got good customers or bad customers, okay? Community, for example, somebody wants to open a casino, and with casino, you get crime, you can get narcotics, you can get all sorts of other problems. The community is interested in that. Of course, suppliers want to know. For example, the government or whoever is, the electric company wants to know if the university is running and everything else, because the supplier will be making revenues, will be making money out of the business. Media also has some interest in it. Government, I already mentioned, and sometimes trade associations, but the big one is competitors. Competitors usually want to know what's going on with your business. They usually want to know if you're developing a new product. They usually want to know all the other details. And there may be some action and political groups. All right, let's take 5-10 minute break, okay? Camera. Camera.